Hey everyone, thank you for your patience. We had an unexpected technical difficulty here to get our webinar started, but thank you for your patience. Thank you for being here. Um, we're actually really excited to share some things with you this morning. As I'm José González, I'm the CEO of Infolink, and we do a lot of customer support for consumer IoT companies, software as a service companies. We deal with a lot of technology and a lot of technology companies in the way of supporting their users. And we put together this webinar for you, which I think is going to make a lot of sense and get you very excited about what we have to share with you. My colleague Amy's online as well. She's going to help facilitate some of this call. We do have a chat window and open questions that you may ask, so feel free to use that. We'll try to address questions as best we can throughout the call, but if not, we'll make sure that we capture that, and we'll make sure that we get back to you as well. That being said, let me. We have Tony Bodoh on the call, who couldn't log in before, but we couldn't do it without you, Tony. You're a big piece of what we are trying to do here. And just to provide some context for everybody. So Tony and I have been working on a few things together. We are for sure in the middle of a technological revolution, with all these IoT consumer devices, smart devices, connected devices. Nowadays, everything is getting connected to the internet, and that presents some challenges for companies, but also for users, right? Because they have to learn this technology, they have to adopt it, they have to make sure that it's that they understand it, and that it works for them in their lives. And as we look at how best to provide a good customer experience to those users, to people who buy those products and use them, I think what's gotten me excited about what you have, Tony, is this whole thing about the transformation economy, which is the topic of our call today. And how do we get beyond just providing an experience or solving an issue? When people call the contact center, and how do we look deeper, right? And go beyond that. And I love what you have on the transformation economy. So I'm going to ask you to maybe share some of those thoughts with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important for us to really begin to understand, where we've come from. So think back for a second, just 13 years ago, and it was 2007, June of 2007, and the iPhone was first introduced. Now, this may seem like, well, this is old news, right? But here's the thing. If you really understand it, when the iPhone was introduced, it's a single piece of technology that we could look to and that time frame that it was introduced. And we can argue that it is probably the biggest catalyst for the transformation economy, as well as IoT for the consumer. And what followed the introduction of the iPhone was unlimited data plans. We didn't have them primarily before that, but we needed access to the internet everywhere we were, so we could get access to everything. We had the awareness of customer feedback wherever we went. If we checking into a hotel, we could see what the feedback was before we walked in the door. We could also put feedback out there on social media, social review sites. So literally, the iPhone and what evolved from the iPhone transformed nearly every business. I mean, we can see a few of them here. Look at how has it changed how we pay for things, how we look for hotels, how we engage with data. We use it as a video camera and as a regular camera and as a map, as a taxi service for us. We watch movies on it. I mean, literally everything we do can be done on a smartphone. That was 13 years ago. Now let's look for a moment ahead to 2030. In 2030, there are some predictions out there, and I'll share them with you in a moment here. But the experts out there believe that we will have fleet-owned, self-driving electric cars And it's projected to be the thing that's going to revolutionize business again. Now, there's going to be other things that come in there, but let's look ahead these 10 years and see what we mean by that. Well, number one, if we have these self-driving electric cars that are fleet owned, we don't have to buy a car, which means we don't have to get a car loan. We don't have to get car insurance. We don't need a garage. And do you know how many billions of dollars are spent a year on garage doors alone? I mean, that industry is going to go away. Parking lots are not going to be needed in the city, so commercial real estate's going to change. We don't need to own a vehicle. We don't need to maintain it. We don't need to buy tires. So all those stores involved with that are going to go away. Convenience stores will go away. I mean, if you just start to imagine what's going to shift. Now, on top of that, think about the police force. How much of the police force in every city, in every state is focused on the traffic violations and enforcing traffic codes? Well, if we have these self-driving vehicles, you know, the AI is going to handle a lot of that, and we don't need police officers. We don't need traffic court. Well, then you start to think about, well, gosh, if parking revenues go away and parking lots are gone and all these taxes on fuel and sales tax and property tax, all these things change, what are governments going to do to generate income? So if you really start to think about this 10 years from now, we will be living in a very different world. Now, whether or not the self-driving car is as ubiquitous as they say it's going to be, we don't know that. But what they do say is that 95% of U.S. car miles will be traveled in self-driving shared vehicles by 2030. Now, you might be doubting whether it's going to happen. But if you look back just 13 years ago, we didn't even have an iPhone. In fact, in 1997, let's go back 10 years before 2007 to put it in perspective. In 1997 was the year that Steve Jobs actually returned to Apple to lead it. It was on the brink of bankruptcy. In fact, in June of 1997, they had just finished their worst quarter in their history. They lost $56 million. Now, think about it. If that was today, that would mean 10 years from now, you know, Apple's losing $56 million right now. 10 years from now, they've introduced the iPod, the iTunes Store, and the iPhone. 10 years is a long time. And today, the pace of change today is happening so much faster. As Jose said, as we launch this, the revolution today is so much faster and bigger than what happened between 97 and 2007.
So Tony, the example that you give about Apple, right? It's amazing how a company that was broke back then, has been able to create so much value, not only for themselves, for the company itself, for so many industries, right? It's literally changed the world, as you just said. And one of the things that I find so interesting is to think about, you know, how did we get here, right? The question on the screen is very telling. How did this all happen? How did we go from being in a traditional economy, if you will, to the level of transformation that we're seeing today?
Well, it's very interesting to look at this, and I think the best place to go is to look to this book that was published in 1999 called The Experience Economy. James Gilmore and Joseph Pine do a great job of describing the past 150 years, and what they demonstrate in this book is that at that point in 1999, we were in the midst of the experience economy, and they used Disney and Starbucks and Ritz-Carlton and other brands like that to show how we were already in this experience economy where businesses were selling consumers events that stimulated their senses, their emotions, and really was focused on creating memories, right? That's where CSAT and NPS all came in. They were there to help companies understand the memories that they were creating for customers. That's fundamentally what they measure. Because we're looking back.
What you have, sorry to interrupt, but what you have on this slide is very telling. I mean, what do you mean by how do you get from the commodity to an experience?
So right. the commodity industry, we extract something with certain traits, as an example, like coffee beans. Let's use that as an example. Coffee beans, they're 5 cents a cup when you extract them, when the farmer uses them, and they roast them and whatever else, right? Then you get Maxwell House, or your favorite brand that you grab off the shelf at the grocery store, and that costs you about 15 cents a cup. And they've put branding on it, packaging, they put it in the store, they get shelf space and all of that, right? They transport it there. But then you take a step up to the service economy. That's where you're actually delivering benefits to people. And that could be the convenience store, or the local diner where you buy it for $1.50 a cup. And what they're doing there is they may have, the flavored coffees or the creamers or the travel, cup to go, whatever it is, like at the convenience store. And so you get it, you keep going for the day, right?
Yeah.
But then you move up to the experience economy, and that's where Starbucks comes into play. And Starbucks is charging, let's say, I have $3 to $5, but I don't know if you can buy a $3 cup of coffee at Starbucks anymore. $5 and up from there. I mean, $7 even. And in this, you're staging an experience, which means that you're trying to engage the senses and the emotions in a way that cause people to have memories and want to come back because they want to relive that memory again and again.
And that's what you get when you're in a Starbucks store, right?
Exactly. Which you don't get that at a diner or a convenience store, or buying your Maxwell House off the shelf of the grocery store. And so what's cool though is there's a step further. So Pine and Gilmore, they spend their time talking about the first four, primarily the experience economy. And at the very end of the book, 20 years ago, they said, we see that there's something else coming, and it's the transformation economy. And just to kind of give you a brief explanation, the transformation economy, as they saw it, was this economy where we would be selling consumers a series of experiences that guide them through learning, through taking action, to help them achieve their goals and their aspirations. And there's no clear line where you can say, okay, we went from experience to transformation. But I would argue, if you look at where we are today, especially, with the topic that we're talking about here, smart products, IoT products, they actually enable the transformation economy. They're a catalyst for it happening, because how many of us track our steps on a daily basis, right? If you're in the chat, you can throw your thing in there. Yeah, I track my steps, right? Or do something health related. You've got a wearable device of some sort that's tracking it, and that collects your data. You monitor your progress with it. It uses some form of AI to tell you if you're doing better or worse than before, or what you can do to improve. And then you can transform your behaviors. But the key here is that the transformation is focused on the consumer itself. And so here's an example. It's Change Please Coffee. It's based in London in the UK. And what they do here is they've gone beyond Starbucks. And they take homeless people off the streets and they train them to be baristas, so they can earn money in that. And there's about a need for about 100,000 baristas in London and in that area of the UK. And they have mobile coffee carts. So the baristas are trained. They deliver the coffee. It costs about the same as Starbucks. But here's the difference. If I walk down the street of London and I've got a Starbucks coffee there, nothing wrong with Starbucks, great. All it says is basically I could spend $5 on a cup of coffee to satisfy myself today. But if I walk down the same street with a Change Please cup of coffee in my hand, that same $5 says something very different to people. It says, I'm not just a patron, I'm a philanthropist. I'm here to change the world. I'm giving people homes and jobs and all of that kind of thing. So it's a very different type of thing. It transforms the consumer. It's the same coffee, but just delivered in a different format.
Yeah, so it's not just the experience that the buyer of the coffee is getting, but he's getting transformed himself, right? He's gaining. We'll talk about this later, but he's almost gaining a whole new identity as someone who's helping solve a social issue in this case.
Precisely. That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
So, as you know, we work with consumer IoT companies, companies that sell wearables, home automation products, automotive products, all connected products and smart products. And where do you see those kinds of products and companies having a chance to be transformational? So how do you tie together these transformation economy, concept with actual products in those spaces?
Well, let's dive a little bit deeper. Let me go a little bit deeper first, if I can, Jose, before I show you the products. That I want to make a couple connections there. In the experience economy, we were probably selling things that we wanted to buy feelings, we wanted memories, right? But in the transformation economy, we're really buying this new identity, as you said. And so the key here is that when someone is selling a consumer IoT product, a smart product, right? You could think you're selling the experience of making it easier for them. But in truth, if your product in some way helps them to change who they are, change their view of the world, It actually is a transformational product. It's in the transformation economy. And this goes back to Maslow, if you will. So Maslow talks about how we have these physiological needs, safety, belonging, et cetera, all the way up. Well, if you look at it, once we satisfy those lower needs, which we've done, we've commoditized those lower needs today. They're satisfied very easily, very inexpensively. So the real value in the economy is coming out of the higher levels of self-esteem and self-actualization, where we are literally transforming ourselves. We're transforming the world. So people are willing to pay for those higher levels on Maslow's hierarchy today, and they expect commoditization for the most part at those lower levels. And why this is interesting is because if we take another step deeper, this is around 2000, Dr. Martin Seligman was the president of the American Psychological Association. I'm going deep in the science for a moment, but I'll pull back out here just so you guys can see where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Dr. Martin Seligman, he said, we've spent 100 years in psychology of really trying to create ways to help people who are suffering emotionally and mentally to move them back to a state of neutrality. But then he said, what if we focus on people who are doing okay? Can we somehow help them thrive? And what's interesting is as he did his research, it lined up very well with what we see in the experience economy and the transformation economy from other places. Because in the experience economy, the first thing that we have is positive emotion. So that lines up with one of these 5 things that Dr. Seligman found in his research that humans are seeking. We're seeking positive emotion. Well, that's what the experience economy has been built on. How do we make people happy? How do we make them satisfied? How do we make their life easier? But then the other 4 areas that come into play are engagement. Engagements like the state of flow, being fully engaged. You might think about employee engagement as an example. Are they really here? Are they really present doing what they want to do? Well, customers are the same way. We've got relationships where companies are building true connections, human-to-human connections. We've got meaning where, like Change Please Coffee is a meaningful organization. They're doing work that's meaningful to people. And then you've got achievement, which is like, how do I achieve something new? We're going to talk about some products that fall into each of these categories. But I want to give you a little bit deeper element here, because if we look at the transformation economy, we could say stay up there in that positive emotion, and we could be competing. It's like the red ocean of competing it for positive emotion. Or we can look and say, where else in here can we compete? Can we really maybe even open up opportunities? And so I think we'll share a couple of those examples here where people are at.
Yeah, this is good stuff, right? Because for any of us that are serving customers, this is what I find so interesting, right? We're no longer just trying to create a positive emotion in that person who we're serving as a customer. We're trying to generate these other variables. I guess we're trying to make sure that they're engaged, not just that we solve their problem or
right.
that they're able to use our product, but that they are engaged as a person. I don't even want to say consumer. They're engaged as a person with what they're getting out of that product. And that gives us a chance. It's a much richer paradigm, right? Because we're no longer just serving customers per se. We're actually creating relationships with them. We're helping those customers achieve things as people and things that are meaningful to them. I think that's where you're trying to get at, I believe.
Absolutely. And it's that richness of the experience that creates the transformation, because they begin to identify as someone different. They begin to identify as they can do more, they can achieve more, they can contribute in a different way to society or to their family or to their community as a whole.
Yeah. Great. So let's look at some of these products that you picked out. Tell us about, let's try to connect this transformational economy setting with some of these products that we're interested in and supporting.
Absolutely. So I use 4 examples for each of these. So where we're trying to, if you look at companies that are trying to improve engagement, that sense of flow, that sense of connectivity, if you will, with a higher power or with something greater than ourselves, or to disconnect from the environment around us. We've got biofeedback for meditation as an example. The picture here I use is from the Muse device, where it actually monitors your brainwaves as you're meditating, as you're doing visualization and meditation exercises, and it gives you feedback on how to improve that so you get into a better state of flow, which is, psychologists say, is the highest or the optimal state of human performance. So sports athletes use flow extensively. Another example would be the jacket you see here is actually a joint venture between Google and Levi's, where they've created this device that you touch the sleeve in certain ways and you can email, text, call, do all kinds of stuff with it, so you can stay engaged with your activity and just tap a little thing on your sleeve instead of pulling your phone out, swiping through everything and all that. It handles it much better for you, so it's kind of keeps you in the engaged state.
Yeah.
Of course, immersive gaming technology, like, you got virtual reality, augmented reality, all these different ways that we're engaging. We're gonna have whole suits down the road where we can, go in gaming environments. But that's an example too of things that are changing, and it reacts to our environment, or creates a whole new environment for us. And then the last one here is a bit of a stretch, but it was a live streaming. Like if you have a GoPro camera and you take a base jumping or parachuting or whatever else. I don't know if you've watched those videos online, but it's so cool. I mean, because you still get that effect of like falling, or if you're fully engaged with it, it feels like you're right there doing it. And so those are just a couple examples of devices that help with engagement experiences and transform people.
So I see what you're doing. You're taking those variables that we talked about before: engagement, meaning, experience, fulfillment, and I think what you're saying is these products in different ways allow you to get to those places, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's look at some products that help you on the relationship side that can actually help transform your relationship if you use them. So how many of us, have got a smart TV and we, turn it on? We don't have to go channel surfing anymore, right? Because the devices recommend to us what we want to watch based on what we've watched in the past. And if we use the rating systems, it improves the AI, formula even better. Or if you look at the one that I like, actually, is the Facebook portal, I think it's called, which is what's pictured here. It actually autofocuses and follows you. So if you're let's say a non-tech savvy person, like my parents or grandparents, if they were trying to connect on Facebook, they wouldn't know the first way to do that. But this follows them around wherever they go. It's a simple touch one button and you're in.
Yeah. These products are so innovative that they're actually tapping into other facets of ourselves as people, as human beings.
Absolutely. So if we're on the meaningful experiences side, like I have a daughter who she loves growing plants. And so I had to pick this one out there kind of as a shout out to her, but you can grow plants indoors now and it'll tell you, it needs this type of nutrients. It needs this type of water, or actually you just load it up and it will release that automatically. And so you can have healthy food whenever you want. The blue picture in the middle there is the Cancer Research Center in the UK. And they put up a smart window where literally passerbys could walk up and just tap the window and it would give 10 pounds, 20 pounds, whatever they wanted to give, just by walking by that window and tapping it. Of course, we've got, Nest, where we can use a Nest thermometer or device like that to save energy. And if we, get to the electric cars, we'll be saving time and energy, especially if they're self-driving. It'll just give us that much more time in our life to do something more meaningful.
Sure.
And then the last group here are the achievement ones, which on the left side is actually a screen capture of the badges I've earned in, of all things, Audible. While it's not technically an IoT device, it's measuring my reading, when I read during the day, how many pages I've read, how many hours I've spent reading, and it gives me different badges for different behaviors. So in a sense, it's kind of the beginning stages of that. Then you've got something like 8 Sleep, who I know, they've done work with you, Jose.
Sure.
8 Sleep is awesome because they teach you how to have better sleep patterns. They monitor you as you're sleeping and give you recommendations. They actually automatically adjust the temperature of the bed and things like that. All the way on the right side, you got sports equipment or managing your diet. And these are all ways for you to improve to achieve something new. Maybe it's to lower weight, to gain muscle, to learn a new skill. Those are all types of things that are achievement oriented and help us to transform that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's about achievement. Again, it's not, this is far removed from buying a can of soup, right?
Exactly.
or
Very much so.
those grains of coffee that you were talking about earlier. Um,
Absolutely.
you know, as 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 you know, we I think we believe to the extent that we do work with these tech companies at Infolink, that customer success um, is the way to create that transformation economy for these companies, right? Customer success as a discipline, right? It involves a number of things, but as a discipline is supposed to take users to a certain outcome, right? Make them
Hmm.
realize that outcome and achieve that they're looking for. And in our case, I mean, we come from the support world, customer support, that is, and you know, support being a part of that customer success discipline, I think it's the way to create that transformation. Would you agree with that? Is that
A-
it?
Absolutely. It's interesting because as you begin to see how customer success is designed in typical B2B scenarios, it's all about making the user successful. And so when you bring it into the consumer world like Infolink does, it's all about making the consumer successful, which is it is transformational in its nature. And it's not just service or experience. So, taking a look at how the shift has happened over time, we still have customer service teams, but customer service is really about focusing on delivery, focusing on helping customers that have issues and trying to fix problems. Kind of that fix break mentality goes on there.
Yeah.
But then if you go to experience, that's really focused on staging. So it's trying to make positive experiences, it's trying to check on your products, your policies, your processes. So it's trying to enable a better experience. But then the transformation is fundamentally different than that, because that's where you're saying, okay, not only are we doing, if there's a problem, we're going to fix it. And not only are we trying to learn through the experience and make a better experience, but we fundamentally want to help people become different people. We want to help them transform, learn new skills, whatever area it is that you're focused on with that product. And so that really is about the outcomes that the customer, the consumer desires as a human being, as this individual who's living a life. How in the world do they achieve that? And that's what you're really focused on in transformation and in the customer success
Yeah,
model for consumers.
this is really really exciting to me because it provides meaning for everybody, right? It provides
Mhm.
meaning for the customer. It also provides meaning for the company and the people that are interacting with these customers on a day-to-day basis.
Well, you you create
You're no
such a
longer just fixing a problem. You're helping somebody achieve something and get
Mhm.
meaning out of what they're doing with your products or solutions, right?
And it creates this alignment, because if you look at the other two, the service and experience, they're more about how does the company earn more, and it's got different goals. Okay, we'll fix it when it's broken, or we'll try to make it better. So whereas transformation is like, I'm only successful as a company when you're successful as a consumer. That's a very different paradigm.
Yeah. So let me get back to what I was saying before, and share maybe a little bit of how we see customer success organizations and B2C companies, uh, tying in with what we're talking about here, the transformation economy, and focusing on that customer transformation as you describe it. Because at the end of the day, to the extent that you're able to be successful in that transformation, I mean, you'll have happier customers, more satisfied customers. You'll have more revenue as well, and you'll grow as a company, right?
Hmm.
And we're all for growth. I mean, that's one of our part of our value proposition is helping these companies grow. And sometimes we've asked ourselves the question, and we've talked to companies that say, but how do I apply customer success in a B2C setting, right? In a business to consumer setting, as opposed to a business to business setting. Customer success comes from the B2B world,
Hmm.
and it involves customer success managers, calling people on the phone and, scheduling calls with them and meetings with them to manage those relationships. And, in the B2C world, that is not possible, right? There's
Right.
tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of customers. You cannot possibly call people on the phone, call everybody on the phone, right? So you've got to do it differently. You've got to use automation, and you've got to use technology, right? But at the end of the day, customer success is customer success. You're trying to produce an outcome for people, right? The outcome that you were talking about, that
Right.
sense of achievement, that sense of meaning, right? And you're trying to do that throughout a journey, right? And that's what we call the customer journey, right? And at the end of the journey, as in any journey, there will be an outcome. And hopefully it'll be the outcome that we're all looking for. But we certainly believe that even if you're in the B2C, you have a B2C business model, you can use, the best practices, of the customer success discipline as much as you would in a B2B company. Customer success touches several areas of your company and several disciplines. Marketing, sales, product, for sure, right? Especially in technology companies. These are companies that are very nimble. They're very innovative. All their groups are tied together. We come from the support end of it, right? And we believe that support is so much. It's such an important part of running customer success in a B2C company, right? It's almost like you should be aiming at using those customer support reps as if they were customer success managers themselves, right? They can do a lot of that kind of work if you provide them with the right information, if they know as much about their customer as possible, right?
Mm-hmm. So, real quick question on that, Jose. How
Sure.
how does it really play out? Like, how do you see it as you got all these people going through the same journey, right? And with a customer success in a B2B world, you have that one-to-one high touch, right? But here it's a very different game. So how do you identify the different segments of customers who are kind of like each other, so you can treat them similar and have a different engagement model?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's the key to all of this. I believe you and I have talked about this many times before,
Mm-hmm.
but think about having different segments, right? Different profiles of customers. You may have, you have the same product, which may be an iPhone, for lack
Right.
of to use a simple example. But that iPhone means something different to a millennial than it does to maybe a retiree, somebody who's maybe 60 or older, is at a completely different stage of life. So I think to answer your question is, how do you do that? And not to get too technical here, but I think bottom line is you have to know that customer so that you can adapt as best as you can to their particular journey, right? To their particular expectations and to their particular outcomes. So we propose that people use data, right?
Mm-hmm.
In particular, feedback data that may be coming from their, what people are telling us through surveys, what people are telling us through, support cases, through social networks. So you can use that kind of data, right? You can also use behavioral data, right? What do people do, right? What product were they interested in? What product did they actually bought or buy? And perhaps, how does the rest of their environment at home look like in terms of smart technology, right? So to the extent that you do that, then you can know more about your customer. You can know, to use your terminology, you can know about their self-identity, right? Who
Mm-hmm.
are they, and what are they looking for? And if you know as much as you know about that, then you can actually impact that outcome, right? And that's what customer success managers do, right? They try to learn about their customers, their particular situation. They try to generate an outcome that is not only satisfactory to the customer, but again, we're looking for transformational for the customer as well. I actually, to your point earlier, Tony, this is a typical journey that we see in tech companies, right? These phases are called different names, and they certainly vary among between companies. But this is the customer journey, right? That goes from pre-sales to renewal, right? Somebody researches a product, they actually purchase it, they you onboard them as a new client. You go through a new client phase, and then you go through an extended phase.
Someone's at front door.
Excuse the background noise there, but at the end of the day, this journey will be very much the same for your customers. Right? It may be 85% the same, but then you have about 15% of the journey that isn't the same. And our job is to try to find what those differences are between companies, right? What's your reaction to that? Do you agree that 15% is actually where the self-identity and self-aspiration is?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you think about like the smart device, right? Your iPhone is the example that you brought up and I used earlier. A millennial looks at the iPhone and maybe that's how they watch their movies and that's how they entertain themselves. That's how they build their relationship. But someone who's a retiree, they may look at that iPhone and say, you know what, this is how I stay connected to my kids, right? So it's more about relationship. And so I think that 15% there is so critical.
Yeah.
And we, in most cases, we haven't, the industry itself, customer experience, has not mined that part of it, because it does require the feedback data, the behavioral data. We have to collect all of this data and get rid of everything that we know is common, the 85%, and look at what's different.
Yeah. To use a specific example, and I'll try to get through this quickly because I know we're getting. We started late, and I'll try to not to make this too long. But we were talking before, you and I, about some specific examples, right? To illustrate this, and think about an older person, perhaps somebody in the retiring age, right? Maybe their self-identity may be, I'm not a techie, I'm not technically savvy. I need help. I can't do this by myself. But on the other hand, I would like to be tech savvy, right? I would like to be up to date. I don't want to have to call my grandson every time I have to do I have to configure my smart lock or my cameras or my TV, right? On the other hand, you have younger people that are self-doers, right? They know their way around technology. They need very little help, but what they're looking for is maybe something different, right? They're looking to be tech influencers, not only with their peers and their social followers, but people that the companies themselves. The companies they'd love to be able to influence that product roadmap as well. And some of the potential outcomes, based, if you learn about your customer, you may generate some great outcomes. If you don't, then you may not be able to do that, right? So some of the outcomes may go from something negative as a cancellation of a service, or maybe just stopping the use of a product, to renewing a subscription or buying more product from the company. So again, to the extent that those things, you can generate the right kinds of outcomes, right? And the way we see it in our business is, if you can use different kinds of data. You can, I mentioned before, you can use feedback data like from surveys or support cases. You can use behavioral data. What did they purchase? When did they purchase it? How do they use it? You can use demographic data, right? Like, who are they? What age are they? Where are they? But to the extent that you know these things, Tony, you can be you can design your customer success, customer support offerings accordingly, right? So for me, maybe for the older person, hey, I design a concierge service where maybe I give her some additional help, some hand holding as she's trying to set up this new device. Or I give her some FaceTime support, where we can actually see each other and I can see what she's doing at home and she can see, what I'm trying to show her how to do. For the younger guy, he's not going to need that, but he is going to need some very agile ways of providing input and providing feedback. Hey, this feature on my product broke, or it doesn't work the way it's supposed to work, and I'm gonna shoot you an email, or I'm gonna shoot you a chat comment,
right.
And I'm gonna tell people, and I'm gonna tell them that I told you, right? And because that makes me feel like I'm being a part of these innovation mechanism, and I'm also influencing my peers. So, and that's kind of the self image that they're trying to get to, right? But the point here is, to the extent that you're able to use data, to the extent that you have more data to work with, then you can create some of these differentiated services with people. Going back to the support journey, right? Depending on the phase that you're in, you're able to build these services into your journey, right? So the concierge service, for example, would be at the beginning of a journey, whereas tech support would be later on. But it doesn't stop there, right? One of the things that we wanted to discuss today, Tony, as you remember, is how do you use all these to generate revenue, right?
Right.
And so it doesn't stop with solving an issue or treating your customer well, creating a great experience. You can also empower your support teams to be revenue expanders, right? To the extent that they do a better job, then those customers will be not only willing but excited about maybe buying some more, telling their friends, upgrading to the next level of your product or your subscription. So you can do some cross sell, some upgrades, some upsell, and to that extent, you're turning your support team into a revenue generator, right? So we do some of these things with our own clients, so we know they work, and they're very exciting things to do.
And I find it really interesting because as you look at this and you kind of, there's the fixing problems as you go along, but when you understand the identity, the sense that someone's going to have, whether it's the millennial or the retiree, they're gonna step away from this and say, wow, that company gets me, they know me. And what's truly fascinating is, you go back about 10 years ago, Jose, and we both started companies, so we both have been through this. You got to pick your market segmentation, right? You got to, I'm going to serve millennials, or I'm going to serve retirees, or whatever else. But now there's a difference because the devices, the smart devices, can be used in so many different ways that it's on the service side, it's on that customer success side where true differentiation is made. And so, how do you go about like looking for and finding these customer identities? How do you really dive into that piece of it?
So. Not to get too technical here, but I hinted at a couple of tools there before. One is by using data, right? And we recommend that people start with their feedback data against their surveys, their reviews, their support cases, things like that.
Right.
You've got to be asking questions of the data, but you also have to discover what may be in the data that you don't know, right? So technology today, especially artificial intelligence technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning technology, allows us to do a much better job than we used to be able to do, right? So when you actually look at text, for example, or as you know more things about your user, your customer, you're able to extract some of these insights. So one is having the data available. Secondly, is applying some technology to the data so that you produce those insights. And the third thing that I would mention, Tony, is obviously sharing those insights with your support team or your CSMs, if you will. They need to have that insight available to them so that when they're talking to a customer, they know who they're talking to, what that customer is like, what the outcome that he's looking for is, and you can try to produce that outcome if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
To go back to her example, right? That retiree, she should come out of that interaction thinking, wow, right? I just self-installed my first tech product. She's feeling good about herself. She's feeling more technical than he used to be. This is something that she can brag about. The younger person may come out and say, okay, so I actually influenced some of the features that these companies going to put into their product next, right? Or I let them know what's wrong, or I let them know what I needed, and I can tell the company, but I can also tell my friends, and I can tell my social networks and so on. So the outcomes that you end up producing are the good kind, right? To the companies having high levels of satisfaction from their customers, but they also, that customer may have upgraded. He may have renewed their plan. He may have told people about your company and your product. He's helping you build that great reputation, right? And he's also giving you input into what your product should do next,
right?
So that's kind of the, and some of these are some of the ways that we've seen this transpire for both users, end users as well as companies, right? So end users will tell you things like what I'm showing here, right? Your team made me feel like what I said mattered, right? I was listened to, and I forgot that I was, upset about a faulty lock. Thank you for being human, right? And that's something that we find in our data as well. It's on the screen, but what we find in our data is people are looking for better human service, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense to automate some things for sure, but the human element is so important, and that's what people react to the most. On the bottom side of the screen, we have a situation where somebody says, you actually reached out to me and you worried about why I haven't used my equipment, right? So what that means is that we actually knew that she hadn't used her equipment, right? And we were able to do something about it. And as a result of that, she's now a pleased customer. You helped me from the very beginning, from the first day that I installed up to now through, good communication on the phone and through email. So those are some of the reactions that we get from users.
Jose, I'm just thinking about what you just went through with the consumers there. 13 years ago when the iPhone was introduced, I was in the hospitality industry, and we literally had a room of people sitting there reading the surveys as they would come back in, and we were just introducing text mining. And now look where we are today, where we're talking, you and I here are talking about mining this data using AI, machine learning, and prescriptively going out there and solving problems before they become problems, or engaging with people before they become dissatisfied. That is such a vastly different world in just 13 years.
Oh, no kidding, right? And he puts the customer at the center of the equation, if you will. It's no longer about your product; it's more about the customer. It's not just them as a customer, but them as a human being.
Yeah,
and that that gets back to our transformational discussion a little bit earlier. For the companies, which a lot of the people that have signed on today are with companies. right? They're having these challenges. Some of the things that we see are, again, these all translates into high levels of CSAT, or however it is that you're measuring customer satisfaction. You may be using NPS or customer effort. You may be using different metrics, but at the end of the day, translate into sustained high levels of customer satisfaction. It translates into relationships, into reputation, right? And I put some quotes there on the right hand side of the screen where, but it doesn't stop with reputation, right?
Mm-hmm.
It also has to do with increasing companies' margins. It has to do with having somebody be so pleased with what you've done for them that they're actually gonna go and replace everything else that they have for your brand, right? And we have a lady that's saying, I'm going to switch all my logs to August Home, right? August Home happens to be one of our clients. Great company, great product. This person is basically saying, I'm not going to do anything else with anybody but you, right? So that's revenue. And to my earlier point about having these groups be revenue generators, to the extent that you incentivize your reps, your agents, your mini CSMs, if you will, to be sensitive to opportunities, right? Where customers may need a more tailored solution, they may need to expand a little bit on what they're doing. Then you can even do some cross-selling, some upselling, and that works directly into the return on investment that you're getting, for your support team, right? So it's no longer a cost center. Now it's a revenue generator. Maybe not 100%, but maybe 50% or 60%. It depends on what you do with it, but it's such an important part of the equation because it also benefits your economics as a company. So, we're getting to the end of this. We really thank everybody for being here. I know, Amy, you wanted to share some things with us, or at least close the conversation that Tony and I have had. But we did not want to do that without at least giving you some idea of how our partnership is working together, Tony and Infolinks, or TBIs and Infolinks, right? Our process. Amy, you asked me to kind of touch on this at a high level before our call, and our process is again to collect and combine those sources of data that you may have available, to analyze those, look for those aspirations, mindsets, achievement goals that people may have, and then based on that knowledge, implement some training, some customer support services, some marketing messaging, and some automation so that this is always running for your support team to work with, right? So that's kind of our partnership is working with TBI. We're very excited about it because it adds a layer of higher intelligence to the customer support operations that we've been so familiar with.
Thank you for giving us the big picture.
I think Amy's microphone's not
Can you
not
drill
working or
down
something.
on
Yeah,
what the actual process looks like? And I see that there's a slide for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I touched on it before. I've talked about this a couple of different times now, but again, it's about identifying those goals, those data sources, getting those insights from that historical data. And by the way, the way TBI and we do it is we use a combination of what used to be called BI, right, which is asking questions of data, and Tony is excellent in doing that. He's one of the top experts in doing that for various industries, right? He mentioned hospitality, insurance, and other industries, and now we're very excited for using his skill set for the technology industry. And then to the extent that we can identify those gaps, Then we to the process of identifying maybe some services, some different channels, or some automated insights that we can make available to those support teams. So again, the goal here is, I hope this was of value to everybody. The goal here is to make your customer's journey transformational, move even beyond the customer experience phase into that multifaceted transformation that Tony talked about, and it's got everything to do with knowing about your customer self-identity, but also helping help that customer get to that new identity that he's looking for. So I think Tony, Amy, we're ready to wrap it up.
Okay.
We didn't get to answer many questions. We're short on time. We apologize for that. We hope this was of value for everybody that attended.
Well, I for one felt that it was really transformational for me just listening to that. You guys have a conversation about it, and I learned a lot. So. With the session will be recorded. Just to summarize, these are some things that we can do for you. And I hope that you guys are excited about this transformation journey for your customers as we are, and being able to leverage customer experience to generate revenues, as Jose said earlier. And if you are, then we'd love to hear from you and explore how we can help. And our contact information is right here on the screen. Lastly, if we're capturing some questions on the chat, we'll be getting back to you to follow up. We've also recorded the sessions, and thanks again for joining us today. We hope that you got some great ideas out of this and how to use some of these ideas to apply to your business. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Tony, thank you for doing this with me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been awesome to see how all of this is connected together and to really take that revenue side of it to an entirely new level rather than just focusing on the satisfaction, and NPS is traditionally where most people stay.
Good stuff. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Take care now.